We wish to speak about the concepts of duality, non-duality, and evil. Non-duality means exactly that. It is integral and integrated at once, thus turning the concept of the coming through of information or awareness upside down. It is instead the allowance of the knowing of all that is and always has been, the full recognition of you, that is you, that is you, soul, higher mind, and physical mind as one, free of the concepts of within and without, in full recognition that you are forever in complete union with all that is. Duality, on the other hand, is a false concept that gives rise to the belief that you are somehow separate from all that is. Esoteric and veil are words used by a mind that doesn't understand this. They are constructs of the limited consciousness to help it grasp limitlessness as a goal to strive for. They help you to perceive in a linear fashion. However, nothing is actually linear or dual in the universe. There is only the appearance of linearity. You are given concepts that suggest the appearance of separation because the seemingly separated mind requires seemingly separated concepts to work with. The seemingly separated mind needs concepts, constructs, and words that attempt to define that which is always known by all that is. It is neither definable nor undefinable, just simply known to divine mind. Definition is itself a concept of the human mind. All definition is inherently a limiting of that which is limitless, that which defies linear definition. Yet without an attempt to define it in the human mind, there is no motivation to seek it. Thus, the need for limited esoteric concepts and constructs in the human experience to hasten the limited human consciousness to seek that which is unlimited, and thereby reach the knowing that such concepts are inherently unnecessary to the unlimited. It is the knowing, in essence, that they do not exist. Thus, the perception of duality is inherently a false construct. Know this. Consider a board game. In any game, there are rules, concepts, and constructs designed to make the game playable. Outside of the game, they don't exist, but you cannot play the game without them. You must learn the rules and embrace the concepts and constructs for the game to have meaning and purpose, and to make it enjoyable. You must transport your consciousness into a different reality, a more limited reality, if you will, than the larger one in which you operate day to day. While you can use your imagination to create a make-believe game that is fluid and has few boundaries, it becomes chaos if not all the players share the same goals. There must exist the same aims for the experience that all are choosing to play. There must be shared context in order for the play to be meaningful and enjoyable. One participant cannot make a make-believe game of doctor and patient, while another chooses to play cowboy and still another a game of astronaut. There are separate sets of concepts, constructs, and rules for each game that set up the perceived environment in which players interact. If each player has their own context, there is no meaningful or enjoyable play among them. However, if multiple players choose to focus on a game of shared context and understanding, using shared concepts and constructs, a board game like Monopoly, for example, then meaningful play can exist. There is a shared objective that all are striving toward in the playing of the game. There are boundaries that all agree to, which give the game meaning. Yes, there is the ability to cheat, but for the most part, play must proceed according to the agreed boundaries. This structure allows for a simulated reality that is the game, and thus it becomes a focal point of your consciousness individually and collectively. This simulated reality then enables the players to achieve together an experience that each desires and agrees to. When you're not playing the game, you are not focused on those rules. Outside the game, you don't need its concepts and structures because they're not a part of the bigger picture of your life. Thus, you don't think about them or require them, and in that sense, they do not exist. Only when you are in the limited time and space of the playing of the game do they seem to exist. Only then do these constructs, objects, and rules have meaning. It is the same with the Earth game. Beyond what you call the veil, beyond the limitations of the 4D Earth experiences, the concepts and constructs that enable the Earth game do not exist. Of course, not everyone shares the same rules and objectives even within the Earth game, and that is good. There is much disagreement among humanity about the purpose and meaning of life. There are many different ways to play this game, and that is actually how it is designed. You are focused in a particular culture, in a particular location, at a particular point in time. There you are given the rules, concepts, and constructs that constitute the boundaries of your chosen Earth experience, typically by the people you incarnate with. They define for you particular objectives that you accept and believe in. Thus, they shape the object of the game that you play. So let us say there are many different games to be played within the Earth experience. That said, the Earth experience also has a collective set of observable rules, physical properties such as gravity and electromagnetic energy, things that define the very basic human experience, that define your reality on the planet. And it has a set of what you would call esoteric rules and structures, such as the veil of forgetfulness and thus the appearance of duality, that are applicable to every Earth game being played. These are the master rules, if you will. They create the parlor or arcade in which the many unique Earth games are played. Now, within every cell of the human body is the innate understanding that duality is only a construct that enables every game of Earth to be played. In other words, within you is the inherent knowing that duality only exists insomuch as you perceive it while in physical form. Thus, you inherently know that there is only the unified source of all that one chooses to experience using the creative faculties of the seemingly separated mind. And because the expression of this creative faculty gives rise and momentum to the experience of more of the same reality one seems to exist in, this creates the perception of duality when perceived vis-a-vis the higher mind. If an observer approaches a group of children playing a board game she has played before, she knows what the object is, what the constructs are, and whether the children are playing it according to the defined rules. The observer witnesses the game, but she is not pulled into the game and subject to its rules. Therefore, she is not experiencing the duality of the game that the children are experiencing, and thus the duality of the game's reality vis-a-vis her everyday reality does not exist for her in the moment. She is simply observing the game objectively. She can see the children are focused on an experience that requires full engagement with the game's constructs, and she may think, I have awareness that this is happening for the children. I have awareness that this reality they are experiencing is being created and experienced by them in this moment of now, and thus it appears as a layer of duality to them. She may reflect upon the knowing that when one is fully immersed in a game, especially a role-playing game, one can be quite involved in what is essentially an alternate reality for the player. But the observer knows that this chosen reality is merely a false construct vis-a-vis the larger reality that defines the day-to-day world of her chosen Earth game. Such as it is for the awakened consciousness. The awakened consciousness observes humanity playing the Earth game in its many forms, knowing full well that humanity perceives a veil, a sense of duality, while immersed in the game. The awakened observer may also be fully engaged in the Earth game, understanding that this is happening or that is happening, and yet the observer is not engaged with the rules, concepts, and structures of the game that create boundaries for the other players. She is not living the same experience of duality because she is aware that it is simply a false perception designed to create shared context for the game. She has transcended the need for the rules of the game, the need for a veil to exist. As we have said before, the veil affects your perception as though a filter has been placed over your eyes. A filter placed on a camera lens has an effect on the physical properties of the camera's output. It can change a scene that the human eye views in full color to appear black and white in the photograph. This rendering does not make the scene black and white, it only changes the perception of the scene in the eyes of one who observes the photograph. Thus, while there is physical evidence of a black and white scene, this evidence does not reflect the true reality of the physical scene, which is most definitely in color. The veil affects the perception of the human experience in the same way. The veil inherently does not exist, but it is perceived to exist, and the output of its effects is perceived to exist to the point that you operate in it perpetually, with most people not even questioning whether what they see is objective reality or a subjective construct. Awakening is realizing that everything in your experience has a filter applied and that it can be lifted. To allow clear sight is to allow the dissolving of the concepts and structures that create the illusion of duality. There is inherently nothing that creates duality except for the belief in the structure that makes duality appear real. Absent a belief in the structure, the perception of duality falls away in the same way that absent a black and white filter on the camera lens, the photograph looks identical to the scene that the eyes perceive. How does one arrive at the point of fully knowing that there is inherently no duality? The first step is awareness that the appearance of duality exists, that a filter is seemingly applied to clear sight. The second step is awareness that this filter of duality distorts one's clarity of sight, thus changing one's perception of all that is perceived, and thus altering one's perception of objective reality. Once this awareness is achieved, the effects of the filter dissolve because the filter, the veil, is part and parcel of the experience that it is designed to create. Thus, the third step is awareness that duality also does not exist except in the believing that it does. The constructed world of a board game only exists when it is paid attention to. The game can be put away in a box, placed in a closet, and forgotten. If it is forgotten entirely, it no longer exists in the moment of now, and thus the apparent duality of the board game is irrelevant in daily life. Such as it is with the perception of duality and the human experience vis-a-vis the experience of the higher mind. There is always the potential for an experience of duality, just as there is the potential for the board game to be brought out and played, but it does not inherently exist unless one chooses for it to exist as an experience. Thus, the appearance of duality can be chosen as an experience by the higher self, i.e. immersion in the Earth game, while there continues to be no objective reality to it. This then is how we would address the perceived experience of good and evil. Evil exists only as a construct within the perception of duality, much like the constructs that make the alternate reality of the board game feel immersive and real while you are playing it. Evil is a perception that exists in the Earth game to the unawakened mind. When one embodies the understanding that duality does not exist, evil also ceases to exist. One comes to the understanding that there truly is no evil and no darkness. One sees that the perception of evil only appears as a construct of the Earth game via the choosing of the perception of a veil, and thus the choosing of a perception of duality. One can then consciously choose not to engage with evil as a real construct. That is what you would call a game changer. However, we understand that while you are embodied in the Earth game, you do witness what you would call evil or darkness. For example, you witness people intentionally harming others. This is part of the current Earth game that humanity has chosen to play through your collective consciousness. Our intent in this transmission is to illustrate that these negative behaviors only exist in the game of duality you are playing. They are projections of a lower vibration human consciousness at this point in time. We wish to illustrate clearly that there is no force that opposes light except in the perceiving of such a force through a limited consciousness. There is no equal and opposite power that opposes God. God is truly all-powerful. God is only light, and there is no opposing force of darkness that must balance the light. There is only the perception of the need for balance in the limited human mind that exists in the seeming reality of the Earth game. Yet you are human, and so you perceive expressions of darkness in your world. What to do about that? Continue to affirm the light in any and all situations. Do not ignore the appearance of darkness, but also do not amplify it with your thoughts and emotions. Instead, choose to amplify the light. When you focus on the darkness and experience negative emotion around it, you unintentionally add your vibration to that which is already negative, and this does not help. Don't ignore the apparent darkness, but don't feed it either. Remember that you are divine magnificence. Thus, you have an incredible power to uplift, and thereby to help shift the experience for all concerned. You must own everything within the Earth game as your own creation. If you witness it, you are creating it in your particular experience. Own that in an objective way, This does not mean feeling bad about it. It means affirming, I am that I am. I am what I am witnessing. Then forgive yourself in the moment for that creation and forgive all other participants in the creation, whether it is the ones you witness harming another, the one being harmed, or the other observers who are saying, isn't that terrible? The high vibration of your forgiveness instantly has a positive effect on any circumstance you observe. This is true in all situations without exception. It adds an elevated vibration to that which you are witnessing, and it is only the elevation of negativity to a higher vibration that makes it cease to appear. It is no different than turning on a switch in a dark room to illuminate it. True, one person offering an elevated vibration to apparent darkness may not make it suddenly disappear. Your own light may appear more like a candle in a large darkened warehouse at first, but trust that you are drawing other candles to yours and lighting them with your vibration. Gradually, others will also realize the power of the upliftment that comes with forgiveness. In time, they will also come to actively choose it. As more and more choose forgiveness, the light becomes stronger and brighter in all situations. This is how you will eventually flood out the darkness you currently observe on Earth. The other effect this has is to bring you much more in alignment with your ability to create positive circumstances in your daily life. It amplifies your magnificent manifestation abilities. This will be a huge game changer for you in your personal life, and it will eventually lead to the world of abundance you seek for yourself and for all of humanity. Constantly practice forgiveness of yourself and all involved in any situation you judge to be evil, and see how your own life improves. Gradually, you will also notice how the Earth game becomes a more benevolent and joyful one for all players. This is what you are here to do, friends. We encourage you to utilize the very simple Hawaiian practice of Ho'oponopono as an excellent tool for forgiveness of self and others. Information about this is easy to find. Please seek it. We wish you blessings on your journey.